Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Axel and Friends podcast. My name is Axel Blaze, back again for yet another episode. And this time around, we're doing something that hasn't been done on this channel in quite some time, and that is focusing on one particular series. And I know a lot of the podcasts I've been doing lately have been more general topics and whatnot, so it felt like a really good time to really hone in on one series. And I think this is one that definitely needs to be talked about because it's not talked about nearly enough. So, in today's podcast, we are going to be talking about what I consider to be, and what many others consider to be, one of the most underappreciated, most underrated series currently running in Weekly Shonen Jump, and that is Mission Yozakura Family. And to join me in today's podcast and to discuss about this series that we both really love, I've invited on Vash from Anime Lately and C4S Villains from Careful for Spoilers. Vash, welcome to the podcast.
Hey guys, I appreciate for having me. I can't wait to talk about this series. It's one series I have a great passion for, and I really want to come on and just talk about with somebody else that has as great as passion as me, and just to give other other listeners, viewers to probably check it out, and I hope you do. And if you do, please let us know what do you think about it.
Absolutely. Because again, it's one of those series that's not talked about, and I mean, which to be fair is that's kind of a thing with anime YouTube, anime Twitter, and whatnot. Is that like the content creators try to focus on things that are part of the algorithm, and Mission Yozakura Family is just not one of those. So, and it's really unfortunate because I do think it's one of the better series in Weekly Shonen Jump right now. Not that Weekly
Agree.
Shonen Jump isn't full of great series right now, because it is. But people like to focus on like the top 4 to 6 series of Shonen Jump, and that's it.
That's very true. The One Piece, the My Hero, the Black Clover, the one and plus JJK. So like people like to just make sure those series. But there's other love for other smaller series.
Yes, absolutely, and the new stuff too. Like, because that's really a big thing, is that there's a very large portion of Shonen Jump right now that is just newer series that have come out in the last 2 years. More so, a
Agree.
lot of new series that have come out like in the last year, year and a half ish. And Mission Yozakura Family is that series that kind of falls in between that, because it's not part of like the old guard, that has like the oldest series is, or sorry, the youngest of the old series being like Jujutsu Kaisen, but it's not also on like the older side of the newer generation with like Undead Unluck and Mashal. It's set in between series that like it's received some love, but not nearly as much love as it deserves.
Agree.
Um, so, but that being said, we're definitely going to talk about Mission Yozakura Family in this podcast. We're going to talk about the characters that we love, talk about some of the plot, the art, which is a big part of Mission Yozakura Family, um, and really just going over the series as a whole, as to why it is just such a great series. So I think I'll open up the floor to you first, Vash. And I want to hear some of your initial thoughts on the series, and I'll kind of springboard off of you from there.
All right. So about Mission Yozakura Family, I read this series when it first dropped. I think was it September 2019, was it?
Sounds about right.
Um,
That was because
yeah.
2019 was the year where we had like the mass exodus of veteran series from Shonen Jump, and that was one of the newer ones that like just started that year.
Yeah. So I just checked. It was September 1st, 2019. So yeah. So right down the spot. Wow. We just made, I think, 2 years now, or 3 years
Yeah,
anniversary. Wow, that's
we
crazy.
have made it to two
But
years.
when I first read this series, I read it up to chapter 10, and then I took a pause because I want to let it build up since um I know Shueisha likes to act series in case they don't do well. So at the time, I just want to let it build up and see what happens. But I kept seeing it on my radar sometimes on the timeline, and I'm like, you know what? I should get back into it. This was around chapter 35 to 40 when I started seeing my timeline a lot. Around by the time I caught up, it was chapter 45. And I went from chapters 10 to 45, and I noticed the big jump from art and for the double spread and the story since it hit chapters 35 to 40 and up. Because I found out about the author. It got some type of new editor, and it was the editor from Haikyuu. So that's why I noticed the big difference of change, and I was very happy about it because when I reread that series from chapters 1 through 10 and above, I started to see the growth, the potential of the series, and the small seeds of character growth, but more of the character centric instead of trying to build the world first. Because a lot of series that you read sometimes likes to do both at the same time, and some writers do succeed or fail. But I feel like this story with the cast of the family and plus Taiyo and other characters, I feel like it just delved in so nice and neat with the character turn and transition with each type of story and with each type of mission felt so smooth, and for us to get to know them before we jump into the full story of why his family got killed in such for said reason. And that's what I love about the series, that we got to know and care about these characters before we got to feel these type of emotion.
I think it's interesting that you brought up the editor change, and that like specifically that the new editor that came on was the one from Haikyuu, because that makes a lot of sense. Like Haikyuu is a series that obviously is very very character centric. Like in a sports series, you have to make the characters interesting for
Right.
people to maintain interest. Otherwise, like, well, volleyball, obviously it's not as like heavily done as, let's say, baseball or soccer are for Japan, because
Basketball
like,
even.
or basketball, like those. But well, yes, but like at the same time, you definitely see more baseball and soccer, just because
Yeah.
those are kind of more integrated into Japan. But yes, basketball is another one. Volleyball, not so much. So in a regard, like that's why it makes it more important, at least for Haikyuu, for like people to actually care about volleyball, and they did. Like tangent, like Japan's volleyball, like uh signups and whatnot went up crazy high thanks to Haikyuu. Very similar to how like basketball numbers went up thanks to Slam Dunk. So just kind of going to show how like Haikyuu had such a big real life impression, but I digress. Um, it was that was definitely that transition period that I think people like you in particular really started to notice more. And it goes to show that like while yes, being a good author and or artist in Jump is a good thing by itself, having a good editor to give you good direction is worth its weight in gold.
It does. Because like I don't talk about it as much on my own shows, on the two podcasts I do that talk about anime and manga. But a lot of people need to understand that when you write a story, you just focus on the story narrative. But when you have an editor, it guides you on what your vision could be. And me, when I first read or watched Haikyuu, I didn't like, not throwing shade. I didn't think it will last as long as it did. But with what you said, the character centric type of story it had, that's the reason why it grew so well and loved by the audience. And I think with the editor change, it made the series last longer than it did, because it could have gotten axed any moment with Mission Yozakura Family. But I feel like with the editor change, they believe that he had something, and that's why they gave that change. And we're still about to reach at 100 chapters for that reason.
Absolutely. On top of the character centric focus, one of the other big things that it did to, I think, get people more interested in it was the fact that like they took more of a battle shonen turn in that time. Because while the gags and whatnot are still present throughout the series, and it is very comedic in a lot of chapters, the first 10 chapters in particular, and even beyond that, were very comedy focused,
Yes,
and
very.
that does lose people, at least in the West. Um, in Japan, they do love their gag series and whatnot. But I think, and this is me making a comparison to another series, but Mission Yozakura Family is very reminiscent of Katekyo Hitman Reborn. Um, I don't know if you've read or watched that series. I know
I have
it's
I
contentious.
have I have not read or watched it, but I've heard many type of reference towards him and Reborn, which I have never seen it, so I cannot agree or disagree. But I have seen the cover of said character, does the MC, and I do see those type of similarities. But again, I cannot agree disagree of how close to it to the character, the story, or at least to the character style.
Sure. So, to give a brief synopsis, at least, um, Katekyo Hitman Reborn is about this main character named Suna, who finds out that he is supposed to become the 10th head of this prestigious mafia family. But he is this kind of crybaby, wimpy character that doesn't want to do it. And so he meets this character by the name of Reborn, who is this baby gangster that is trying to teach him how to become a better mafia character. And just like Mission Yozakura Family, it's a series that started out much more gag focused, and then later on took a battle shonen pivot. The big difference, though, in terms of this pivot to that battle shonen, is that Mission Yozakura Family did it a lot sooner. With Hitman Reborn, it took the battle shonen pivot like 79 chapters into
Oh
the
wow.
series. Yeah. And I did not realize that this was an issue or even a thing until Broken Ronin on Twitter was just like, guys, Katekyo Hitman Reborn sucks. I don't understand how people can like sit through this. And I'm just like, what do you mean? And then like I looked at the amount of chapters it took to get to like when the Battle Shonen pivot happened, and I was just like, oh, that's a lot of chapters. And like there are a lot of people that can't get through a gag heavy series like that for that amount of time. So the fact that Mission Yozakura Family did it a lot sooner, I think, was a lot more beneficial because there was no way that it was going to last, 70 some chapters being just like as gag heavy as it was in the beginning. There was no way. Not in this modern Shonen Jump landscape. There was no way that it was going to be given that leeway. Um,
That, but also when I read the series of the first 35 chapters, it barely had any type of double spreads within each chapter, or like you probably find a double spread every 10 chapters or every seven, and that's very low from a series where when I first read Mashle or Under Unluck, I think it was
yes.
in chapter 9 or 10. Under Unluck had almost 6 or 7 double spreads back to back, and I find that so beautiful to actually see that happen, and it shows that of how much time they actually dedicated, but is when they know that they believe in something. So to see within the series about Michizuka family within the family after chapter 40, you notice at least one double spread every chapter, and I just saw the difference of story and passion, and in the art style change, and plus in the penmanship change as well, and I just find that so beautiful.
So I think that, and this is just my guess, but I think that ties into again that gag aspect of it because from what I've read with other gag series, they don't really do double page spreads. Like they don't do it because like the gags don't need to take over 2 pages. Like it's all about setting up the punchline and executing the punchline again and again and again x amount of times in a given chapter. So a double page spread isn't necessary to portray that unless they just have like a really big moment. So like that's not something that you necessarily see in series like High School Family, Me and Roboco, or another good example, the series that came out at the same time as Mission Yozakura Family, Mi Tama Security.
Oh yeah.
That was a gag series, and that really didn't have double page spreads. Not that the art was necessarily at a level where like a double page spread would necessarily look good enough, but that was just kind of a thing. And I again, I don't know if this is like a direct correlation or not as to why Mission Yozakura Family wasn't doing double page spreads until they got into the action side of things, but that is at least something that I've noticed. And I will say I miss me Thomas Security. It was a
I
dumb
never
series, but it was funny.
I never read it, but I've been meaning to when it was out week by week. But when I heard it got actually like, oh well, I guess I read it one day, not now. It doesn't need it to. But I was like, huh, it's planned to. But that's something I feel like is important for gangsters. I mean, that's important for storytelling because when you actually read later on about Mr. Family and see the dark past of Tayo and the family and notice what they went through or going through, and then those moments of in the most recent chapter, we had one of the sisters just go on a date, just trying to, after all that happened with the war of this one mission trying to take him out, and then you finally have just a random chapter. Yes, it felt very random out of left field, but it felt like a little nice, so slow pace and just get back to reality. Oh yeah, they're still kids. They're still in their teens, in their 20-year-olds. They still need to live a normal life in some way. So I just like those type of moments in those type of series.
Yes, it's important for a series to breathe in between arcs. Like, and I think too many people nowadays just want like action, 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 and they want to go from arc to arc to arc to arc, and it's just like you need time to breathe. Like I'm not saying like you have to have like 20, 30 chapters of like one-offs between like one major arc and another arc, but like it's okay to take chapters to, do one-offs, do something funny, show character moments. Like that's great, but like there are too many people that are just like I want to go from point A to point B to point C to point D, here, and like you see that as complaints for various series. Like I think one of the like out of like the big four right now, I think My Hero Academia definitely gets the most flack for that. Because you have so many people that just want to go from arc to arc to arc, and
Oh my god, it's
take
annoying.
they don't take time to appreciate like some of the slower arcs or like some of the like the one-off chapters that happen. It's just like, oh, this isn't whatever. Just get into the other stuff, and it's just like, come on, like,
That
really?
to add to that, it's annoying because the same thing with, for example, with what you just said. To add to that, My Hero, Black Clover, and One Piece. There's some chapters that Black Clover chapters be so Like me, I'm not a fan of Black Clover. I'm not gonna say it's bad or it's perfect. No series is perfect, but for a series like Black Clover and One Piece, they have some chapters that people be like trying to question it, like, oh, is this the way that Oda should go, or is this the way that Tabata should go? And me in my head, I'm like, but we're not the ones writing it. Why should we question it? How about let's see the results? But with today's time, we just see chapter by week, and we don't let see the results of what happened next week and see it in the big picture. So when people say, "Oh, I want to fight every chapter," like, but then where's the story? Where's the character build? Where's the character growth? We need those type of development. But people excuse it like, "Oh, I want to read it because I want to escape." Like, but don't you grow in yourself as well as a character? It's the same thing like of what we read in the page. We see how Tayo grows and how he has changed from getting married to now to fight for his own family, to try to save his wife. Like we see this type of character grow for a reason because we read the series. It's like it goes by month.
Mm-hmm. I there you've got a lot of people that are critics online that are like,
Yes.
"Oh man, I could write this series a lot better," or blah blah blah, and it's just like, you don't understand how difficult it is to be a manga author and or artist, and the work that what goes what into it and whatnot. And like even for the authors and artists that get canceled, the ones that only make it to like 20 some chapters, like the fact of the matter was there was something
They
in their
tried.
series. Yes, they tried, but there was something in their series or concept that the magazine editors were like, yes, let's give it a shot and see what happens. Like there are a lot of people out there that like they think that they have a great idea and whatnot, and they might. I'm not saying that like everyone that like thinks that they could do better can't do better, but there are a lot of people that don't appreciate the work that like actually goes into these series, and the fact that like these people were chosen over hundreds if not thousands of other people and their submissions and whatnot. But again, it's just like, oh, this series sucks and I could do it better. It's just like, calm down, Billy. You you don't know what you're talking about. Um, not and obviously not that we've necessarily seen that a lot with Mission Yozakura Family, but that's also because not enough people talk about it in general. So,
Agreed. And that's the thing that I'm happy that I'm curious to see when Mission Yakuza Family, when would it get the big jump? Like when would it get the big spike of sales, growth, popularity? Like because we're almost at chapter 100, and sorry, not Viz, Shueisha has this habit of trying to announce a anime adaptation around once most series reach chapters 100. So curious to know that would the anime do this big push like it did for not definitely Demon Slayer, but definitely more like My Hero, Black Clover, like that small extra push, or like maybe the JK did last year, because it definitely will not get the Demon Slayer type of treatment.
yeah, I honestly wonder, because by all means, we are definitely at that point where we could get an anime announcement. Um, and I think I'll give more of my thoughts on that towards the end of the podcast when we start talking about
Yep.
numbers and whatnot, and predictions and that. So like, I'll leave it for that. But you are right in that this is more or less the time where if there was an offer on the table, this is about the time that we would see it. And then because if anything, if there was an announcement at this point, it would be for next year at the earliest. Nothing is happening this fall at this point, or even I would even say this winter is too early for anything if it were to get announced. But we can only kind of wait and see.
Hope.
Yes, and hope, honestly. Because it definitely needs that boost. So I for people, one, that are still listening to this podcast at this point, and two, haven't read Mission Yozakura Family, uh, you did hear right in that we did say Tayo and his wife, but I do want to emphasize that the two main characters that yes are married in this series are teenagers. Like this, we're not talking about like some older married couple or whatnot. Like the main characters in this series are teenagers, that are married. Um,
But they're above age to get married in
yes.
Japan.
I'm not gonna spoil why or how they got married, because that does take place in the first couple chapters. But I will say, one of the reasons right off the bat, before even jumping into the character discussion, one of the things that actually makes this series unique in a way, and it's weird to say that because there are other examples in Jump that are doing the same right now, but it is one of the few series that actually has an actual relationship between the main characters, like in the story itself. It's not one of those, popular shonen series where there are love interests throughout the entire series, and then the main character picks one of them at the end of the series. Cough, cough, Naruto and Bleach. No, this is a series that like actually has a relationship from the get-go, and is one of the best depicted relationships in Shonen Jump right now, which is impressive for a series that isn't technically a romance-centric series. Like, the relationship between the main characters Tayo and Mutsumi is one of the most like precious, adorable relationships I have seen in a manga series in a very long time. And it's something that deserves its own appreciation, and it is definitely a reason to get into the series itself. Again, especially if you're someone that like you hate it when there's like quote unquote love interests throughout the entire series, and then it's like, all right, well, the main character has to pick one at the end, and then they do. Or in other circumstances where they don't pick a main or a love interest. But again, not going to get into that. But are you on that same kind of level of appreciating the relationship between the main characters?
100%. Because that's one thing why I fell in love with the series, because the with the author, they knew what they was writing, they knew how to write the characters, and I'm really hoping to hear one day some type of interview of how they plan these characters, because he formatted each character, the siblings, and the character of Taya and plus Mitsumi, of how they balance each other and how each one needs another. It's not of how, you know, one is a breadwinner or this and that. It's more of a 50-50 relationship. And sometimes there's some days one does more than the other, and that's totally fine. And that's one thing I love about the relationship. And how I used to tell people or compare for them to read it, because I've shown about 5 people this series, and all of them have read it and they have never been disappointed, which I love. That I've actually tried one recommendation and everyone loved it. But one series that I always compare this is like Spy Family,
Mm-hmm.
instead of younger, and also more of a bigger cast. That's why I try to tell people, because Spy Family, sometimes it takes its break, it's bi-weekly, so it's very hard to actually get that spy type of feel. So I tell people, hey, read Yozakura Family, you get the spy feel, but you get that type of battle shonen type of feel as well. And that's how I usually try to tell people to try to convince them to read it.
Mm-hmm. Because and yeah, Spy Families, the numbers that Spy Family pulls in are insane. Like,
They're
it's like
amazing, so I'm very happy for that.
it and Kaiju number 8 have absolutely insane manga sales, despite only having a few volumes out. But like Spy Family in particular, the fact that every single volume has sold over 1 million copies is insane. Like, those are not numbers that you see for a series that like is only a couple years old. Like, that's something that you see once you get like an anime announcement for like series like Demon Slayer or like Tokyo Revengers, which is another series that is just like exploding with sales. Like, almost every volume at this point is like at like 900K and approaching 1 million each. So just kind of goes to show how an anime really can make a series just go crazy. But Spy Family is just insane for like a series again that has only been out for a couple years and is normally in a digital only format. The fact that like its physical and digital sales are over 1 million each is insane. And I never expect that for Mission Yozakura Family, sadly, but that is a very good comparison to make. That it is, you get to see more spy stuff with Mission Yozakura Family. You do get it more regularly.
Yep.
To my knowledge, Mission Yozakura Family has never taken a break week outside of like the double issues of Shonen Jump, which is crazy to see that like that much work has just gone into it week after week after week after week. But like it's great that you get to see more spy action. You get to see more characters in general. And Mission Yozakura Family has a very great cast of main and side characters.
Yes.
And like as much as people want to see the relationship blossom in Spy Family, you do get to see that from the get-go with Mission Yozakura Family. So like if those are elements that you like, this is a series that has them. And it has them in spades, and it does it very, very well. I was gonna say, it, like I said before, it's not the only series that is exploring a relationship in a battle shonen or slash like non-romance focused series, because Undead Unluck is also doing that, although it doesn't start exploring that like earnestly until 50 plus chapters in. So that is a big difference. Like Mission Yozakura Family started it from the get-go. But I appreciate that there are more series nowadays that are actually like having realistic relationships from the get-go rather than just sticking a relationship at the very book end of a series. I think that's great that we're seeing it. Not saying that every series needs it, but like it's great actually seeing it executed. So that is a positive.
I agree with that. And just seeing a series at least succeed and stay alive with its current fan base, um, small type of color artist actually does the pages. Like at least it has a fandom and it's still surviving. I feel like it's doing something and it's succeeding doing something. Cause like yeah, it doesn't have great sales, which we'll talk about later, and probably cry and be sad about it. But at least we see something with what the series has done, and I feel like that's something to not look over it.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree. Well, we have discussed two of the main characters and the relationship. I think we've given it enough time to definitely talk about like the cast as a whole, and like hot damn, in all honesty, and again with the whole Haikyuu editor thing, it makes sense. The cast of Mission Yozakura Family is great. Whether you're looking at the main family, whether you're looking at the enemies, whether you're looking at the side characters, there are characters in this series for everyone to enjoy, and I think that's fantastic. Like you start out with the main family itself. We've already talked about Taiyo and Mutsumi. Mutsumi has 6 siblings. She's got the oldest brother, Kyoichiro, who is a syscon, and his main form of spy tools is strings. You've got the eldest sister, Futaba, who is this girl that loves to dress up in Lolita outfits, and she is super strong. You've got Shinzo, the next oldest brother, who is a crybaby, but also is like a master at using guns and weapons and whatnot.
He's so
Shion,
skillful, man.
he is, and he's God, he is
It's
so
scary in a good way.
hilarious. It is. It's just like I'm scared of everything, and then you put a gun in his hands, and he turns into Rambo. Like dear God.
He reminded me of James Bond, like James Bond, but like with the Terminator type of style. Like it's like you're so good at weapon, but you know how to kill, but you also have that sweet side out of you.
Mm-hmm. I can definitely see that. You've got Shion, who is the super smart sister. She's really technologically advanced, and she has a video game aesthetic to her work, which is really great to see. It has been really relevant as well. Like they had an entire chapter of Mission Yozakura Family in the style of Animal Crossing, which was very
Yep.
relevant in 2020. Um, so that was cool to see. You've got Kengo, who is a master of disguises, and then you've got Nanao, who is like the master of science, medicine, and poisons, and he's the youngest brother, and like he has two forms, and I'm not gonna spoil the second form, but like you're introduced to him as this like big bulky guy with a lab coat and a bucket on his head with like a very crudely drawn like smiley face, and then you find out like what he like really looks like, and it's just like, oh my god, this
He's
is the same
adorable.
character. He is such a good boy. He is such a good boy. And then you also got the family dog, Goliath, who is an Okami dog, who he is normally really tiny, but he can grow into this giant dog to protect the family. And
Which I would say that's the one thing that shocked me the most because I didn't expect that. And the double spread was goddamn so beautiful.
mm-hmm,
I didn't expect that at all. I'm like, oh, so this is your other form. I see.
mm-hmm.
Dope. I'm like, can I have you as a dog? Because I would like to have you.
Oh my god, Goliath again, yet another good boy, but a good doggo boy, and compared to human boy. But
You
uh,
never have to take care of the dog. The dog takes care of itself. It pees, walks, eats, drinks whenever it wants.
mm-hmm,
That's the most beautiful part of life. You don't have to do the work for the dog. That's amazing.
mm-hmm. But the family dynamics themselves are great. Getting to see like the individual dynamics between certain siblings and Tayo, how those siblings view other relationships, um, the especially with like some of the like the more recent chapters, where like with Futaba, getting to kind of show us more about why like Tayo and Mutsumi's relationship is as important as it is, and seeing that through her eyes, like again, really great character writing, like just fantastic across the board. And like
And I just love how we're already into 90 plus chapters and we still get flashbacks of the two MC as kids. And it just adds more layers to the flashback of them as characters, but also builds them even more for us to care for them. And that's not saying that's easy to do or hard to do. It's just knowing that you're adding a flashback to to an arc and to a current fight or task, trying to pass this test, but you're doing it in such a smooth story pace. I didn't feel like I was taken out of the story of him trying to pass this test or trying to drink a tea, but the author did it so smoothly for us to understand that this is her perspective of how she saw them as kids, and I found that so beautiful.
agreed, it is really great. Um, it's a it's just a great family as a whole. They're super awesome. Um, in including their grandma and grandpa, who are just fantastic characters. Um, and they again kind of tied into the battle shonen side of things. Um, the the author was able to integrate a very simple power up for each of the family members that looks really cool, that was implemented in like double page spreads for like each one of them, that like ties into their abilities and whatnot. So it follows the standard shonen battle power ups, and like everyone getting them and whatnot, including Grandpa, who is just one of the best characters in the series. But I mean, when isn't a main character named Ban a great character in the series? Just like in Seven
That's
Deadly
true.
Sins.
I just realized Bond from the Son of the Sins and Bond from Vince's Good Family almost has the same personality.
They
I
are
just noticed.
very playful individuals that are super strong. Um,
And they're flirtatious with their woman and not with their woman as well.
I mean, Bond doesn't necessarily like. Bond from Deadly Sins doesn't necessarily
Do it on
flirt with
purpose.
other
He just very
women, but
smooth of
like,
it.
yes,
He just very smooth.
yes, agreed. Um, and then you've got the father of the Yozakura family, who is a very mysterious individual, and I will, I think, just not to spoil things with the father, I won't say how he's involved, but his use throughout the series
So
raises a lot
well.
of questions. But he's such an interesting character. Um,
And I love how it doesn't make the audience mad because you know how, for example, One Piece. Not trying to spoil too much, but One Piece, like when you see those small little Easter eggs of all those poneglyphs, all the big straw hats, stuff like that, you'd be like, "Oh, what does it mean? Oh, what's going on? Yo, Oda, we want this already. We want this information." But about the ninth generation father, like we don't know much about him, but we get small seeds every here and so often. But it's small seeds that we can wait for. Okay, we get some information, but then we get okay, but he just left. We get more mystery, and then we get more information. So we get here and there, which is good storytelling because it keeps the audience wanting more, but also it gives us a little bit, so it keeps us on our toes, and I love that.
mm-hmm. I definitely agree. Um, Speaking of things that the the villain group in Mission Yozakura Family is very interesting. Um, I will say, at least for me
Apropos.
personally, yes, Tanpopo. Um, I was worried that the series was going to get axed a lot sooner because it felt like, oh no, we're facing this seemingly final boss right
Thank you.
away.
I felt the same as well. Like, no, like this cannot be the end of the series. It feels too soon. So I'm glad I was not the only one that felt this way.
Right. It definitely like and like when you have been reading manga and watching anime as long as I have, like you see the flags. Like you see these things that are just like uh this shouldn't be happening now. Like this is not a good sign. Like that's what it
I
felt
was
like.
I was worried because when I read around when I think when the arc ended around chapter 85 or so, and I'm like, wait, where are we gonna go after this? Like, what comes next? I'm like, so we defeated this main said villain or not, who knows? And then what's the repercussion? Who's next to go? So I'm so happy that we got more information later on within the chapters. Like, okay, good, there's more. I want the series to build more. I'm like, I was not nervous for the series to wrap up and not reach chapter 100, but I was very hesitant to feel like, okay, is he being rushed like Kubo when he wrote the last arc of Bleach, or is this just because this is the full wrap? But once we found out more information, I was more relieved because this was such a good villain that I actually felt scared for some of the characters.
Yes.
And how did you feel about it?
So like I love how we were introduced to the villain. And how it did introduce some very dark plot points because again like up to this point like it was a very light-hearted series, a lot of gags despite Tayo's circumstances, which are very dark to begin with, and like incorporating that into his backstory and then like seeing like this develop over time. And I'm glad that as the big arc was wrapping up, it was introducing us to new plot lines and like new what ifs of like how things are connected and whatnot, especially to the main family. Um, so I'm very interested to see where things go from there. That being said, one of the things that I really loved about Tanpopo is that a lot of its main characters of the group were very interesting characters with good designs and or good personalities that made them very interesting. And they're definitely the kinds of characters that like we'll probably see again in the future. And for one of them, um, we do, like, right off the bat, and how they interact with the Yozakura family. And oh my god, my heart in that chapter with that former character of Tanpopo interacting with the Yozakura family. Oh my god, my heart was just, I
Ooh.
couldn't take it. The one related to Goliath. Um
Copy.
I'm
I
again
know.
not trying to spoil things because, like, people
Of
need to
course, of
read
course.
this, but like my heart in that chapter, it was so adorable, and my heart wanted to break at one point, and then my heart was so full again, and like that was my chapter of the week because of just how, like, I'm a very emotional person, and so like that chapter did a lot for me compared to other series like in the week that were per se like just going battle heavy. I was just like, oh my gosh, these are really great character moments that we're getting to see unfold, and I love Yozakura Family for it. And again, it was another one of those chapters where, like, for some people, it would be a chapter where it's just like, oh, like, just get back to the main plot or whatever. Why are we doing one-offs? And it's just like, how dare you? This was great. Shut up. Um, but again, it just goes to show, because like this character and the other characters from Tan Popo were very interesting, and whatnot, just how great the character writing and design is. Like, these were all characters, for the most part, that were very interesting to look at and had just great interactions with the characters. Um, so it was really well done, in my opinion. Am I saying that it's at the level of other villain organizations? No, absolutely not. But it was definitely interesting, and it was fun, for sure.
For me, I love the character. Um, it's not a big spoiler, but I would say how much the additional to this character to the series has been.
Mm-hmm.
Because I being part of Tampopo and then where she is now and how change said the characters that who she is with now. I love that type of dynamic and shows that how these characters can relate, even though they're not in said person's shoes like but they could understand what they have gone through and have some type of empathy because that's the one I enjoy the most because everyone feels lost. And when you feel like there's a change in your life and when that person, your guardian, is not there no more, and you just have to adapt, that's a hard change. But when you have people around you that that gives you that trust, it changes your mind. And I find that so beautiful of how with how this series I and how they wrote it for her could adapt into her new surrounding. And I love that very much for her
Mm-hmm.
character.
Agreed. I definitely agree there. Um, and then other than the enemies, there's a lot of great side characters as well. Like, you've got
Rin is my favorite.
Ren is your from Hinagiku. Yes, she is a
Yeah,
great
she is.
character.
I love her character.
So, like, for those that don't know, there are a lot of other spies in the series. Who would have thought more spies in a spy series? No, no way. There's a spy organization called Hinagiku, run by some very elite people. You've got other lower ranking spies that interact with the main characters, like this girl Ayaka, who becomes the maid. You've got Sosuke, who is this one spy boy who it's hilarious watching him fail at things. Like, he's a very elusive, like, he has like no presence, and like he messes with the characters sometimes, but like he's still a good boy in the end. You've got Seiji Hotokeyama, who is one of the sketchiest police detectives that you will ever meet. And then you've got like random usually like one-off spies as well. On brand for me and my channel, there were two freaking dolphin spies named Dolph and Irokaski, who were like
I was
former spy dolphins.
I was laughing at that. 'Cause I'm like, is this a reference to Hardboy Cop and Dolphin? I'm like, is this some type of nod that
Might
you
have
enjoy
been.
that series?
It
But
might
I'm
have
like,
been.
but now when I check back, because there are times where I like to check back on certain series chapters that I enjoy, and then that was one of the chapters I checked back. And then I saw the whole Dolphin nerd. I'm like, and this was after Hardboy Cop and Dolphin got axed, and I'm like, sad memories.
Mm-hmm.
Dolphin. We had a
Mm-hmm.
good series, a Dolphin before. That's so
Yeah.
sad.
So sad. Oh, hard-boiled cop and dolphin, you will never be forgotten. But yeah, sad, sad
By the
day.
way, I do want to say this now. If you haven't done like a special for that series, I want to be part of it because I love that series very much.
I haven't yet. I'm
And if you,
contemplating it. We'll see.
when you're ready to open the wounds and to discuss the series, I want to be one of your first guests to be part of it. I don't care if it's a panel. I just want to be part of it because I love that series and nobody else spoke about it other than you. And I love talking to about the series with you every time on timeline when I had the chance because I love that series. It was gone way too soon. Just saying.
I hated having to be the realist in those conversations, and I hated being like, it's probably gonna get axed. It's probably gonna get axed. It's just like, just looking at the stats, it's probably gonna get axed, and it's like, I don't want to say this, but I know I have to say this, and just
I'm
it's
also hopeful because I think you and me spoke about it. I think like a month before I got asked. We're like, hey, I don't think so. You said it might. I'm like, wait, maybe not. And then like 3 weeks later, and then I just tag you like, yeah, damn. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm like, damn. We were so
uh-huh.
sad that day.
Yeah, yeah. It was just like,
But
uh,
I do want to say one character that remind me so much of like a Kirito. It was Sui. Sui reminded me so much of his, because of his sword skills and of his black type of swordsman type of his type of outfit and the way he sounded so cocky whenever he drew his blade. And I just love how he helped Tayo as well. So I just love that trying to build other characters, and that's what you hate or like this character Kirito, but he reminded me a lot of just Sui.
mm-hmm. Like Sui's another member of the Hinagiku, the
Correct.
special spy force people and whatnot, and I I really want to see more of them moving forward
Agreed.
because we definitely haven't seen enough of them. It's they could definitely be relevant for like the next arc after the current one, but I guess we'll just have to kind of wait and see um what happens there. Um the if we're gonna talk about characters, the one thing that we really need to talk about was the chapter where they had fan submission spies in the chapter. So there were at one point in time, Mission Yozakura Family asked its fans via Shonen Jump to submit drawings of characters that they would like to see in Mission Yozakura Family as spies. And this is something that you see for a lot of different shows and whatnot too, especially for like ones with like huge casts. Like you can definitely bet that One Piece has had them in the past. My Hero
Hmm.
Academia has had them in the past. I mean, that's how we got Bubble Girl and Centipeder, was that they were
Yep,
fan
correct.
submissions. And so you had an entire chapter of Mission Yozakura Family dedicated to these fan submissions, and some of them were just goofy as hell, but in the best ways. Like, so one of the ones that was like so dumb but so hilarious was there was a character, and this is according to the wikia, this is his name, Oh, an emergency. And this it was a guy dressed in a full body green suit to look like the stick figure for like an exit sign. Like he was a character based off the emergency exit sign, and his name was Oh, an emergency. along a similar line, you had a character that was literally a stick figure named Stick Figure. And like they played it off as just like no one knows his secret ways of how he keeps his body so slender, and it's just like, oh my god. And then on top of that, you had another character who was literally named Crazy Girl, who was this big breasted blonde American girl in a bikini with a minigun. Like, and you go on the Wikia and it listed her breast size, and it's just like, oh my god. Like, this is. It's so
Wow.
goofy, but so funny. And
The detail in information. Wow.
yeah, right? No. It's just like, you want to know her breast size? We got it. All right. Okay. And you had Ginji, this little Shiba Inu with like 2 cannons on his back. He was literally a dog with cannons and he was a spy. Um but that being said, my 2 favorites were these 2 female spies. One of them was named Fusen, who was this girl that had bubblegum as her spy tool, and like she had like her hair loops with like bubblegum balls in it. And then Yamarin, who is like this gecko girl. So for people that, you know, they're cool with Suyu from My Hero Academia, if you want to go from the frog train to the gecko train, then Yamarin is your girl. But like, I that chapter was so funny and so great, just seeing like, oh, you've got these certain characters that are like really original and like super funny, and then you've got a stick figure, an emergency exit sign, and a dog with cannons on its back, and is like, it just, it still works so well in this universe with all of its just fun, interesting characters. I don't know if you remember anything else with that chapter, but like,
I do remember, but not top of my head. I don't have it right next to me to actually look back into, unless you tell me the chapter and I could quickly scroll. But I do not remember. I do have my favorite characters f from Temple, if you want to ask me that.
well, if you've got, let's say, who would you say are your 3 favorite characters in general from the series?
Ooh, from the series.
Mm-hmm.
Do we count the 2 MCs or
You can count
since
any character introduced in the series.
uh definitely Tayo and plus Mutsumi, but I'll put them as one because they're like damn, 3 characters was with a big cast.
I'll extend it to 5. We can
All
make
right,
it
5 is
5.
easy. All right, 5 is easy. All right, Tayo and plus Mutsumi. I love Shinzo. I love Ben. Oh, Ban, sorry, Ban. And uh Rin. Those are my 5.
Fair enough. Um, I would definitely have to put Tayo and Mutsumi in the top 5 as well, because it's just kind of a given for them. I would, as much as I want to put Bon in the top 5, I don't know that I could. Because I want to see more of him. Like, he's great, but I do want to see more. Um, I think of the siblings, Shion is definitely my favorite because I just enjoy all the video game stuff and whatnot that she does.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, she's just a fantastic character. Um, I would say, oh man, go figure. I'm the one that poses this question, and then like just kind of like,
You
bleh.
see, it's hard. Like
Um,
they're all so good because I would even put Fotuba as well there because she's such a good character. The way she's so strong but also so delicate, the way she dressed and the way her character is drawn, her hair, and the way she cares of her siblings. But she's a gold standard spy,
mhm.
but she's also has such a good will of for her family, and she's my favorite sibling because Koshiro, yes, he's the best spy out of all of them, and his steel strength is amazing. The way he knows how to handle that, but he's definitely the most weirdest one. So he's definitely not my top favorite, but as a character, he's great.
Mhm.
He's just not my favorite.
I think I would also have to put Ayaka in my top five. The spy turned maid, just because
Oh
I
yeah, she's so
love
sweet.
her personality turn and just how funny that is, going from like one extreme to the other with them.
Yeah, because she fall in love with Tayo, but then she fall in love with Matsumi. So she's falling in love with the two MCs, but then now she works for them as their maid. I'm like, okay, that's totally normal. You guys just invite her to their house. Okay, it's
Yep.
totally normal.
And then honestly, I'm probably gonna put the police detective Seiji Hotokeyama in my top five as well, just because
Well, did he
he's
call him fishy? He's fishy though.
he is, but he's so weird and like great at the same time. Like he is such a polar opposite to Kyoichiro and to Rin. Like it's so funny.
He rem he reminds me of the cop in the Batman comics, Gordon. He reminds me of him a lot.
He's like a combination of Gordon and Eraserhead from My Hero Academia.
Okay, I see that. Nice. Okay, I see that combination. Yeah.
Yeah, like that would definitely be, I think, where I see him. Is a kind of a combination, and like this is just my off the top of my head like top five. It probably would change. Um, I give an honorable mention to Dolphin Irokaski as a side thing, but
For me,
it's
if I had to give a six, it's definitely Nanano because I like the relationship with him in the arc with Tayo in the school. I love the arcs. I felt it's so touching and so heartwarming. So definitely Nanano is one of my favorites out of the family as well.
mm-hmm. They're just they're all really good. Um, honest, the only one that I want more from is Kengo, because like he's a
Agreed.
really fun character. He's really fun. Like seeing him go in these disguises and be all these other characters is great, but it just reminds me a lot of Gray from Black Clover, and how like we don't get to see more of her character and more
You hit on
behind
the
her
nose.
until later on. And like we don't get that with Kengo. We don't get more of that, and I want to see more. Like we've seen more with literally every other character. Like I would say the only one that like we haven't seen more of as well would be Kyoichiro, but like at the same time he's been so present in the series that like it's not the worst thing that we haven't seen more depth to his character, like apart from like the stuff that we expect. But Kengo is really the only one where it's just like, give me more, give me more reason to care about Kengo other than he's fun and lively and like puts on these disguises to be other people. Like show
But
me more.
I did like the combination of Kengo and Shion
Yes,
tag team against Cha Cha, and I forgot who it was in
it
Temple.
was the ice guy.
Um, Anumu or Aonumu, how do you pronounce
Yes,
his
I believe
name?
it was Anuma.
So, but I really like the tag team because it gave more of the brother and sister type of dynamic,
Mm-hmm.
but it also gave Kengo more highlight of said skills of how to counteract the ice abilities and also the dual dynamic of siblings because we always see we always see the two we always see sister and brother type of dynamics, but we haven't seen Kengo and Shion as a group yet. So it was nice to see them as a tag team and actually go up against Tumpopo and see how the chemistry worked. So I
Mm-hmm.
love that very much. And hopefully we get more of Kengo as well, because I would like more of that in the future.
Yes, and speaking of the two, they did have one of the more interesting color pages
Oh my
drawn
god,
of
yeah.
them. Which
One of my favorites.
yes, I definitely want to talk about the art a bit before we get into the numbers and reality setting. um, the art, the color pages, as well as the volume covers for Mission Yozakura Family are fantastic.
So unique.
Indeed, like they with a lot of the color pages, the artist likes to dabble with different styles every now and
In
then.
water paint. You barely
Yes.
see that in a lot of artistic in manga. Like in comics in West you do, but in manga in the East you don't see that much. And when I start to notice a lot of his curve pages look like water styles, and I love that. It's so unique. And I'm like, how do people not get attracted to this? Like this is so unique and different from like I love my One Piece. I love my Hero and other series from Shonen Jump and 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 other publications from Japan. But to see it in a Viz type of series and the artist does a different style just to be unique, how does people not get drawn to this in their sales? Like, oh, I'm gonna go to the store. Oh, what is this? This looks different. This look like some type of water paint or anything, some water art style and everything. But people don't pick it up. Like, what do you see that I don't see that does not attract your attention? Because it's so beautiful and so artistic.
So I think that contributes at least to the magazine sales. Because you get to see the color pages in full in the magazine sales, or digitally, but you don't get to see that in the actual physical volume prints. Like I've purchased a couple Japanese volumes, and I don't think that they actually put color pages in like the individual volume sales, and I could be very wrong. I could have just because I've purchased physical copies of Cop and Dolphin, and I've purchased physical copies of A Gravity Boys. But I just did not see color pages in them, and I could have just missed them. Who knows? But even then, at least like the volume covers are really cool to look at. So I think it does attract some people, but it's one of those things where like it's not necessarily attracting a new audience or enough of a new audience yet, and that's why it's not connecting like it should. And that definitely does reflect in the numbers, at least. But by far, like I love the fact that we get as many color pages for Mission Yozakura Family as we do. It is one of the series that has the most color pages, like in Shonen Jump for the current year. Although it is other series are rapidly catching up, I will say. I was gonna say I believe I still have my notes from when I did my jump stats and whatnot. Okay, here we go. So like it is being caught up to by other series like Mashal and like Sakamoto Days, or even like Elusive Samurai and Witch Watch. Like there are a lot of series that are getting color pages throughout the magazine, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of share of them Mission Yozakura Family continues to get or not. And like I said, we can definitely talk about that with the numbers, and we can get into that now, unless there was anything else that you wanted to mention before we move on.
Um, I would like to ask, do you have do you have any thoughts of how many chapters would the series go, or like how many more arcs? Do you have any idea?
Oh boy. Um, if the series was allowed to run to completion, I would honestly say between 200 and 250 chapters, if I had to guess. Just based on where we are with the plot and what already happened with what we thought was going to be like the main villain. Um, I could see it going on for like 200 to 250 chapters. Again, assuming that Jump doesn't make it end sooner than that. If it were allowed to run to completion, that would be my guesstimate.
For me, minimum 150,
Mm-hmm.
because depending on where this arc goes currently, and maximum 250, stretching it 300, but I don't think any more than three. That's definitely the maxes that it will go to. But definitely my far reach will be like 250, 220, and my minimum will be 150, depending where this current arc will go.
Mm-hmm. I just and this isn't necessarily a fair comparison of series in terms of like figuring out amount of chapters, but I just think back to like Assassination Classroom and how that was able to wrap up in 200 chapters approximately. I feel like that is a safe guesstimate for Mission Yozakura Family as well, because again, like we're past the point in time where any given shonen magazine is trying to have series that last as long as possible. We are not in those same days of like Bleach, One Piece,
Thank you.
Naruto, Tekio Hitman Reborn, etc., where they're just trying to go indefinitely until they're like allowed to end things. Like we are getting more and more series where they are ending where they want to end things. I think the perfect example of that would be Demon Slayer, because Demon Slayer at its peak in terms of like manga sales and whatnot with after the anime ending was wrapping up, like going into its final arc. Like the author wanted to end things and they did, regardless of how people felt about it, but like they did not want to stretch things out further. They wanted to end things. Like, and you have other series that are like that as well, where they want to like end it like at a certain note. That was the case with like The Promised Neverland as well. That was another one that was very popular before, back in the manga days, not before season 2 of the anime. But I digress.
Oh yeah, that's a whole different conversation. I don't know what happened.
It is. But like realistically speaking, I think Haikyuu is probably one of the longest series that we're going to see for some time. I mean, like, I think My Hero Academia will potentially reach the same amount of chapters as like Haikyuu, but I could be very not wrong. Haikyuu had 402 chapters, and like right now My Hero Academia is at 324. So Haikyuu at least was like the longest running series to end the most recently, but My Hero Academia should hypothetically beat that if it runs for another year and a half, which I think My Hero has longer than that. But and that's, I mean, I also kind of like get a reality check for Jujutsu Kaisen, since Gege Akutami said that like Jujutsu Kaisen was like half over, and Jujutsu Kaisen is at 162 chapters. So like JJK is not gonna be some 500 plus chapter series. It's probably gonna be under 400.
And which I'm fine with that, and I'm happy you said it so well, because I've said it numerous on my Shonen Ronin show, where we have discussed that not every series has to be Naruto, Bleach, or even One Piece. Some authors just has a story and they just want to write that and then move on to the next story. It's like, for example, you may like him or not, Hiro Mashima, he has written 3 series. No matter if you like them or hate them, but he has written Rave Master, Fairy Tail, and Eden Zero. No matter what, they're doing numbers, and no matter what, people read them, and no matter what, there's a fan base for it, and he has a goal for them, and he does it and completes it and goes to the next one. Does he do a perfect job? It's up to you to like it or not. And to me, and that's why I like with the current authors on Shueisha for now, because they know what they're coming in for. Masho, right now, people are saying that it might end soon because with the current story. On the Unluck as well, people theorizing that might end around the 110 chapters, which to me is like, that's fine. That means those artists could write their next story, come back, and do another good series. that to me is a good start. To not every series now has to be the next Naruto or Bleach. Be writing 100 chapters, or like Oda do 1,020 chapters. That's a milestone. But who knows how he feels? He might be like, "Yo, I'm done writing. I'm tired of writing all this Luffy and Zoro type of run." So knowing that as long as the author of Yozakura Family, Mashle, Underdog, Demon Slayer, The Promised Never, as long as they wrote the series they wanted and got the chance to flesh it out how they wanted, I feel like that's mission accomplished.
I definitely agree with you there. Although, again, whether or not they are given the chance to write completion will be another story entirely. Mashle will.
It's all about the money.
That at this point, there is no question that Mashle will get to finish its story how it wants to finish its story. It's one of the better selling new shonen. Like there's no question with it. The bigger question mark does go to Undead Unluck and Mission Yozakura Family, but I would say that the bigger question mark would be on Mission Yozakura Family at this point in time. And a big reason why I say that is because, say what you will about Undead Unluck, but its numbers for sales do beat out Mission Yozakura Family. And on top of that, Undead Unluck is actually getting the next cover page in Weekly Shonen Jump after this next one, which is big. The fact that it's actually getting another one after its 1 year anniversary, it's big. Is it as big as as Elusive Samurai has been? No, but again, we can talk about that. So, moving into the sales side of things, the sales for Mission Yozakura Family, by all means, have not been bad. But in comparison to some of the newer series that have come out since Mission Yozakura launched, their numbers aren't as great. So, for Volume 7, since this was the furthest back or one of the more recent ones I found back that had at least 4 weeks of sales numbers, Volume 7 sold 35,094 copies in the span of 4 weeks. Volume 8 sold 36,391 copies in the span of 4 weeks. And Volume 9 sold 41,785 copies in 4 weeks. And these aren't definitive numbers in terms of what was sold after that or whatnot, but these are the ones that were tracked through Shoseki rankings. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of the manga rankings right now are still filled with back copies of various manga. Like the big one being Tokyo Revengers. And this was a similar thing back when Demon Slayer was getting sold like crazy. Like the rankings were dominated by Demon Slayer. So because of that, for some of these series that sell not as many copies, they fall off the rankings a lot faster, and we don't get to see definitive numbers. And like I said, on top of that, Shonen Jump has never given us a definitive number for how many copies of Mission Yozakura Family are out in circulation. So we don't know where Mission Yozakura stands in terms of how many total it has compared to other series. If anything, I can say that it does seemingly do better in the magazine than in the manga sales, but that is still on the low end compared to some of the other series that are out there. And I think, would you agree on that, Vash? I don't know how familiar you are with some of the other numbers.
What was your question exactly?
Sorry, are you familiar with the sales numbers for some of the other series as well, or no?
Yes, I do tweet it out from the brand. I kind of heard it here and there from the brand of anime lately. Kaiju number 8 doing good numbers, which is doing fantastic, which I'm amazed for that. And Mission Yozakura Family numbers gets updated not so much frequently, but it's because of the numbers being so low, which is very disappointing. But like you said, like Masho doing such great numbers and as much, I think it's chapter 75 or 74 right now currently, and to see it doing so well in that and do such good color pages all the time, doing promo on newspapers and everything like that. It shows how a success and like it just makes you wonder like what is it that Machine Secure Family is kind of missing.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And it's concerning because like it deserves to have larger numbers than it does, and like it is good to see that it's continuing to grow, but when it comes down to it, like there are series, especially newer ones, that are just crushing it in comparison. Um, and I'm trying to look up like some of the numbers. I mean, like obviously the big one right now is Elusive Samurai. Elusive Samurai is just going nuts in terms of like its sales numbers and whatnot. Like volume 2 came out in August, and after 4 weeks of sales, it sold over 88,434 copies. That is over 2 times the amount that volume 9 of Mission Yozakura Family has sold. And this is the second volume of Elusive Samurai. And even past that, Blue Box, which is just the breakout star romance series right now in Shonen Jump, its first volume has sold 65,499 copies in the span of 4 weeks. 65,000 for volume 1 in comparison to Mission Yozakura Family. And like another one like Ayakashi Triangle, it is how many volumes in at this point? Let's see here. Ayakashi Triangle just sold its 5th volume, and volume 5 of Ayakashi Triangle has sold 66,531 copies. So while manga sales aren't everything, the fact that like there are several series, especially newer ones, that are just crushing it in comparison, it does not look good for Mission Yozakura Family in comparison. Like that's it is concerning.
What I do wonder is when I read this series and I see people always talking about on the timeline, My Hero, One Piece, Underdog. A few people talk about Dr. Stone. Um, Sakamoto Days is getting a lot of love too, so I'm really happy about that.
Yes.
But it's one shock is about Mission Family. Like, what does it do to survive in Japan? Like, I know it's not the sales because the sales is just so the sales are perfect enough to stay alive. But what is it in Japan? Like, is it the fan base? Is it the people that talk about in Japan? Is it the editor in Haikyuu that talks about like, hey, we still need to stay alive? This is whole like. I wonder what works behind the scenes that actually kept the float, because that's really interesting for me.
So it could very well be that there is other merchandise or whatnot that is selling really well for it.
Oh yeah,
So
clothes, pops, who knows?
right, because that's the thing. So like, and this is another thing that I really need to make like a specific video for. But a lot of people don't realize that there are other things that are being sold for these series other than just their manga. So like case in point, Maku-chan God of Destruction at one point recently sold plushies of the different characters from the series, and they sold out and are being resold online for like 3 to 5 times the price.
Wow.
That is another example of just multi-revenue streams that are affecting how well a series is doing. And that's the thing, like in the West, we have absolutely no idea, none, how well these series are doing in terms of other properties or like other merchandise and whatnot that is being sold. So we are in the dark. And that's a thing that I don't think enough people recognize. Again, like it's not just this black and white, oh, manga sales are everything. Oh, like where it is in the magazine is everything. No, there are so many other factors that we aren't aware of because we're not in Japan and we're not seeing it. And again, it doesn't help that like in the West, the people that are discussing series and whatnot are focusing only on the ones that fit the algorithm. So like when you have people that like try to be like, oh man, this series is getting axed or whatnot, and then it doesn't, it's just like you don't understand enough. Like you can't just make these blind guesses because you're just focusing on certain things when there are other things that you should be looking for. And that is what very well could be the case for Mission Yozakura Family. It could be selling merchandise really well in Japan again, and we've discussed this multiple times at this point, probably because people love the characters. There is probably character-driven merchandise that is keeping Mission Yozakura Family alive and well. And that while it might not be selling as much in the manga, it is selling probably really well with the merchandise if it's character related. Again, just a guess, but I think it's a good educated guess.
And I feel like that's a good one because, like, for example, here in the West, comics um don't get bought a lot. Sometimes it gets read illegally. But for people that don't know, Young Justice. Young Justice is a series that did not do well on Cartoon Network. A lot of people did not watch it, and then it just got cut. It just got axed. Because also the merchandise was not getting sold a lot. A lot by kids or girls was not getting bought. But then years later, Twitter, people kept hashtagging Young Justice come back, Young Justice season 3, we need season 3 and everything. The reason Young Justice season 3 came back is because of us, the audience asked for it, and us kept asking for year to years to watch, and people kept rewatching it on Netflix or wherever it was on said streaming service. So people seem to forget that just because it's not being sold on one type of market, like comics or anything, there's other type of market like Blu-ray sales. There's also merchandise in gaming, in t-shirts, those type of things shows that company like. So like I said, Shueisha probably on the sales of its volumes are not being sold a lot, but probably people in Japan, people are buying shirts of Michizuka Family, sweats, who knows, that we don't get from here or get told about it.
Yeah. And that's the big thing. I want to say that like that's the biggest example for Black Clover, for sure, because a lot of people, they'll disrespect Black Clover and be like, oh, its manga sales suck, so like why, or compared to all these other series that are like bigger, so why is it like still running? And it's just like Black Clover sold a lot of Blu-rays and it sells a lot of merchandise on the side. That is why it still does really, really well. But again, you got a lot of people that are just black and white, this or that, when it is absolutely a gray topic for sure. I will say at the very least, one kind of I don't know if you want to call it like a glimmer of hope kind of thing or not. Mission Yozakura Family does rank decently on like the Manga Plus hottest ranking. It does rank 27th. So like it's not, by all means, it's not, a One Piece, a My Hero, or even like a Sakamoto Days, or surprisingly Red Hood. Red Hood is actually ranked 11th right now behind Mashal at 10.
Oh wow.
But I will also say this: Western opinion doesn't matter as much compared to Japanese opinion, just because, again, like was just mentioned in detail, we only purchase so many things that are actually available for a given series. So, unless we actually go out and through like Japanese sellers or whatnot buy other merchandise or buy actual manga volumes for them, we're not doing anything to really impact the series as much. Unless, again, insane numbers are put in on the Western side. So, like, if insane numbers are posted through Manga Plus or through, like, Viz's app, yes, it might have some influence, but at the end of the day, Japan it's their share of the highway. Which is also why we have
Yeah.
gag series that have lasted longer than other series, as much as people want to be like, oh, why is High School Family still in the magazine? And it's just like, there are reasons.
Or me and Robocall, because that's the
Yes.
question that until this day. Because Phantom's here, got asked, but me and Robocall still here. I question that all the time.
Yep.
But I agree 100%. Like, I feel like people get mad at Shueisha and everything, but people need to understand we're not the market. Their market, is us, but Shueisha market is Japan.
Yep.
And where their sales come out and how they know they're succeeding is by Japan market. The reason Japan survived through the pandemic is because of Demon Slayer making so much money in sales and in their box office. So people need to understand that Shueisha heavily depends on the manga sales and what they do and their content. They don't care on what we do. So slowly they have started to learn that slowly throughout the years. They just finally made $1.99 on their whole backlog of Viz less than 2 years ago. So for them to finally learn that, they're slowly improving on their marketing. Oh, we should care about the West. So slowly, probably by next year or 2 years from now, they will be like, okay, we should care about the this type of analytics when people check on Mago-chan, when people check Candy Flurry, when people check One Piece, Yozakura Family, Vigilantes. How do we know people actually reading the series? Let's check the analytics. This / ratio will work together more later on. Now they should have years ago, but they're a company that's learning with adapting on the apps on the west side because then we're not their main target audience, so they don't care much about us. But they will soon learn that we are important factor to their series that they produce as much as they care about the ease of their self of Japan as much as about us in Japan. I mean, here in the West.
Yeah. I we can only hope, for sure. I will say, if anything though, like Jump will or Shueisha will care more about the Manga Plus numbers than they will about the Viz numbers. And I only say
True.
that because Viz obviously, has a licensing deal. So, like, Shueisha does get a cut of the profits that they make, but it's licensing compared to Manga Plus, where that is a Shueisha app for English. So, like, any numbers through that are more relevant to them. But either way, that is stuff that like is going to be more relevant as time goes on. And like we'll see that. But even then, people should not be surprised if merchandise sales in particular in Japan drive decisions more than, digital impressions from the West or manga buying from the West.
I agree.
But yeah. Well, other than that, I think that covers everything I had. Was there anything else that you wanted to say on Mission Yozakura Family, State of Jump, anything before we wrap things up?
Uh, with Michigan Family, I think we did a good non-spoiler conversation for people to at least be intrigued to read the series. And if you're all the way up to here and listening to us to talk about the series, please just check out the series. It's only currently of this recording is 95 chapters, and it's so good. You'll get a lovely love of all casts and a straight artistic style of each character having their own personality, their own trait. But I do have some thoughts of the state of Jump because I have seen the timeline and people saying that once My Hero, One Piece, Black Clover, and JJK ends, and One Piece will end in the next 5 years or so because that's what Oda have said by year 2025 in the next 5 years. I think a year ago too he said that it will end within the next 5 years. I'm like, okay, so a lot of people like to theorize by 2025. So a lot of people like to think that the state of jump will go down, and the state of jump Shueisha will not will not continue to swim. And then it makes me wonder, like, what did you guys think before they have Bleach, One Piece, and everything? They were not in a great position, but they always will find new writers, new authors, and they will give them a chance. Yes, they have a habit of axing series before we know if they're doing well, like Phantom Seer, Powerboy Cop and Dolphin, Samurai 8, and everything. But it's all a rinse and repeat. Like I tell people, Marvel, Marvel comics were not doing great back in the 90s or back in the 80s as well. There's always a small gap of series not doing well, but there's always a time for them to rebound or in somewhere relapse. So I hate that term of people thinking that just because these four big series are about to end within the next couple of years, Jump has nothing to swim or some type of lifeboat, and that's very disappointing because you have no faith in the future of the authors that's currently doing it right now, and in the future authors that right now are currently reading Jump and are creating their own story as we speak.
Absolutely. I mean, like, at any point in time, you could have a series that just explodes in popularity and or is given a tremendous boost by its anime. Like Jujutsu Kaisen, prime example of that. Demon Slayer, very prime example of that. Tokyo Revengers, outside of Shonen Jump and Weekly Shonen Magazine, prime example of it. It's one of these things where, like, while we may never have another One Piece, we probably won't, honestly speaking. Like, we will
Which is
probably,
fine.
exactly, that is fine. Like, that is not a bad thing. Like, we are in a state right now where people are more interested in anime and manga, or at least manga, more than ever before. Like, the industry is in a fine place right now. There are a lot of great series that are being printed in multiple magazines that are doing really, really well. And you don't have to have series that are, selling 5 million copies of a single volume, like, again and again and again. You don't have to. Like, they weren't necessarily doing that before, and while they could again, if a series really pops off, it's not a bad thing. Like, we're in a place where, again, you've got multi-revenue streams where they're making money off of various other merchandise, anime, etc., where manga sales aren't everything. Magazine sales aren't everything. Like, there is a bigger picture to it, but we will be just fine when series like My Hero, JJK, Black Clover, Doctor Stone, and One Piece end. We will be just fine. There will be new series that come up, new series that, like, take a hold of the magazine and are, like, driving sales and whatnot. You can't be all doom and gloom about it because
Agree. And
things
plus, at the
change.
same time, people forget that, like, for example, Kubo, he took a break and came back and rolled one shot. The same thing with My Hero. Hero could write My Hero and they could take a year or two break and then come back and write another great series. Or maybe he could flop. We don't know. There's sometimes hidden wonders, or there's some people that wants to take a break and has another idea ready. So I feel like that word of the doom or the state of jump is not gonna be great after One Piece ends, and they're like, how do you know? Can you predict the future? Like, that is what upsets me with this current stage of social media, that people want to all be critic but not be a content creator themselves.
Right.
So, like, it's hard both ends content creating, in the YouTube, in the writing, in the art way, all is a struggle. And when people like to criticize and not just be behind a desk is a whole different situation. So to know that I believe in the state of Jump, just like I've always believed in the state of Marvel, DC Comics, Dark Horse, all of them, there is a possibility because there's always new writers, new storytellers on their way as we speak.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you.
So yeah, and on top of that, give more give more respect to editors. On top of that, it's just an added note on top. As we've discussed today, an editor can make a whole lot of difference. And as
100%.
long as Shonen Jump continues to employ fantastic editors, we'll be fine. There will be fantastic editors to keep guiding content creators into the future and making great stuff. So we'll be fine. We'll be just fine. Will Mission Yozakura
And
Family
lastly,
just be fine? Hopefully, but
I want to say there's other publications in Japan. There's
yes,
there's there's not just Shueisha Jump. There's not just Shonen Jump. There's other like Jump Plus where you get Kaiju no Bray, where you get Ghost Reaper Girl, where you get the new series that's I think you pronounce Dun 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 Dun. I think
Don da Don.
Dun Dun Dun. So yeah. So there's other story like that. There's Twin Star Exorcist, Seraph of the End, World Trigger. There's many other publications from Jump itself, and does not Jump of Shueisha. There's other ones. So please check out other series as you can legally or on the scans. But the support is helpful, and that's why some series does succeed than others. So there's more stories out there than just Battle Shonen.
Absolutely. Well, I think that wraps things up then very nicely. Vash, I want to thank you for coming on, and I'm going to let you have the floor to give your plug in at the end for any of our brave troops that have lasted an hour 40 minutes into the podcast.
For those brave people that have checked out the show, and if you are fans of Mr. Fan, please comment down below, tag at me or tag at Axel, and thank you for having me as well. You can always find me at Legend D Vash on Twitter, um, or IG, or the Discord, or you can find me on the brand account Anime Lately, where you find two podcasts. Anime Lately podcast is on Thursday nights evening, where you may not find me sometimes because my daily job on production has me for working 12 hours, so sometimes I'm not even on my own show. But you'll find the other panelists as Ray, James, Abe, Spicy, or Sam, and any of many type of guests you'll be there as mangakas are there from the that does webtoons or anything else that you could just find conversational. Or you can find the Shonen Ronin podcast on the Sunday afternoons at 1 p.m. EST, where we talk about the My Hero, JJK, and Black Clover and other set series. And when the series drop that Sunday morning, you'll find myself, Abe, and Sam doing a manga reaction on said series as My Hero, Black Clover, Underdog, Masho, and Mushin Yuzukura Family, where myself and Abe will give you that quick conversation before we do our Shonen Ronin show. And lastly, careful for spoilers. We are at 480 subscribe, support, because we gave you the comic book type of discussion in this type of pop culture world where there is Shang-Chi that just came out this past weekend. A review's coming out this coming week. And we also talk about What If on the C4's Villain Show every Friday nights, where I'm some there, sometimes, depending on production. So that's a show I also do, even though I'm not there sometimes. So please support, and I appreciate if you do, guys, check it out.
Absolutely. And I will make sure that all of those links are in the description down below so people are able to have easy access to those things. Well, once again, thank you for being here. And thank you to anyone, again, that has made it an hour and 44 minutes into the podcast. You are the real champ. If you are not subscribed already, please consider doing so, especially after sitting through an hour and 44 minutes of conversation and whatnot. If you like the podcast episode and you like the topic and whatnot and you want to see more like it, hit that like button. If you want to listen to this on Spotify, I have the link to the Axel and Friends podcast in the description as well. If you're listening to this from Spotify, I have the link to my YouTube channel in the description. Feel free to just subscribe to either or, as I release podcasts every Friday around 11 a.m. CST. And other than that, once again, thank you guys for listening. My name has been Axel Blaze. Read Mission Yozakura Family if you have not done so already. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.